So everyone, please help me in giving a warm Osprey welcome to Mr. Scouller.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you gather, leadership presence is the subject. And here's what I hope you will get from this morning's session. One, a much deeper understanding, maybe a fresh perspective on this difficult but important subject, leadership presence. And secondly, at least the beginnings of an idea of what you can do practically to help your unique leadership presence unfold. So that is the agenda, and that's what I hope you're going to get from today's session. So everything I'm talking about here flows from one of the chapters in my book. So if this resonates, if you like it, feel free to buy the book. My publisher will be thrilled. So that's where I'm taking it from. So let me describe the running order, the agenda for the day. First, we're going to talk about why it's so important to you and to those you lead. Second, we'll take a look at what it is, what it isn't. And I'm going to suggest to you that it shows itself through 7 qualities. Then we'll talk about its benefits. Now, that's really another way of saying why it matters. But there are certain things I can't say to you about its benefits, the benefits of leadership presence, until you've understood more about it. I'm going to guide you to have a couple of experiences. So this is going to be a fun, interactive session, and you will be doing stuff that I hope you'll remember for some time. So that's the agenda. Let's get cracking with it. So why does it matter? Because you may say to yourself, why can't I just, if I'm going to be in business, why can't I just learn marketing or law or production or finance and so forth, and that will be enough, and maybe learn a few skills on the way, on the job. Now, you do need to do that, because it's very difficult as a leader to have people's respect if you are incompetent, if you don't know your stuff. But here's the problem. This is, if you're a poker player, this is like table stakes. That's the minimum. You need that to have people's respect. But having people's respect for your technical knowledge, your technical know-how, does not mean that they will trust you. Does not mean that they will trust your motives. It certainly doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be inspired by you. Your leadership presence has a direct effect to your resilience. This is your ability to handle things when the going gets tough. I was just chatting with the community leaders in the room over there, and we were laughing because you will find, whether you're leading a project team or a complete business or an organization or a nation, things will go wrong. Guaranteed. And your ability to handle that with grace, sometimes with humor and with ease, will be tested if you have very little resilience. It is guaranteed that things will go wrong. What is this elusive thing? So let's start with definitions. The state or the condition of being present. I completely agree, but it's absolutely useless because it doesn't guide you in anything. So other definitions that you will find: a high-impact professional attribute founded on a critical skill set. Note the skill set bit. And this particular author, who's selling a best-selling book, and you will find it in America, talks about managing other people's perceptions and their impressions of you, improving your communication skills, creating and maintaining a personal brand, and using the internet to boost your profile and reputation. So it's very much about your impact and your effect on other people. Other definitions are the ability to command the attention of others and the ability to connect authentically with the thoughts and feelings of others. Now, the common thread through all that is it's very much being defined around your effect on other people. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not going to argue with it, but I am going to say that's not how I define presence. So here's my first definition. Presence is an inner psychospiritual state or condition with an outer expression, an outer reflection. So it's an inner psychospiritual state or condition with an outer expression. But even that isn't particularly helpful, I must admit. If your presence is flowing, you will feel natural. Things will feel easy. You will be very present to the moment. You won't be approaching certain problems with negative feelings from the past. You won't have a fixed view on how events must unfold if you're to be successful and if you're to be happy. You'll be able to handle things afresh. So you don't have a rigid, filtered view. And if you want an example of this, sports stars. Let's say you're at match point. You're about to win the Wimbledon tennis championships. If you're in the flow, if you are experiencing your present, you would not be worrying about the bad linesman's call a few minutes earlier or the interruption from the crowd. But neither would you be saying at the same time, if I win this point, I'll be the champion, which must have gone through Andy Murray's mind because he was British, and so we got very excited because this was the first Brit to win Wimbledon for 80 years. We got very excited. And I imagine he did too, because he did 2 double faults just before he beat Djokovic. So if your presence is flowing, you would treat that match point just like any other match point. Now, I don't think, contrary to some authors, that presence shows itself in a particular way. I suppose you could say a person with presence will be very attentive, they'll be listening to you, they'll be very here and now, they won't be deflected, they won't be looking at their texts or their smartphone, they'll be with you, and they'll be talking very honestly, and perhaps almost in a disarmingly honest way. But apart from that, I don't think you can say that leaders behave in a certain way. So what I'm saying is you may find some leaders with presence who are charismatic and visionary and exciting and inspiring, but you may also find some leaders who are quiet, analytical, contemplative. And then again, you may find some leaders who are both at different times, depending on the context, depending on the challenge. So what I'm trying to say is that leadership presence, when it comes to behavior, doesn't conform to one mold, one particular expression. And yet, and I think it's unique to you, by the way, and yet we do know it when we experience it. So what is at its root? Well, working with leaders and working on myself, in my view, the root is wholeness. I could have used the word integrity, but the word integrity I think has lost value these days because it means different things to different people. So I mean wholeness. What do I mean by wholeness? I mean the opposite of inner division. You see, most of us in this room have unrecognized limiting beliefs about our flaws, our potential, our place in the world. So on the one hand, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, but I must never fail. So can you see that there is an inbuilt conflict there, an inbuilt tension? Can you see that? Is that making sense? Yeah? So that's what I mean by inner division, and this is really common among leaders. What does it cause? It causes defensive behaviors. It causes you to get tense, irritable. It may cause some leaders to adopt self-serving behaviors, like ego-driven acquisitions, for example, or immoral behavior. So it has serious consequences. So what I'm saying is wholeness is the absence of inner division. Wholeness is the healing of these beliefs. In fact, it is the removal of the belief number one, so you don't have these clashing beliefs. So you could say another definition of presence is that it is wholeness expressed. So wholeness is this inner alignment of your self-image, your feelings about yourself, your purpose, your feelings about your purpose. And when that's all aligned, then your presence starts to flow. That's when you have wholeness. What else do I want to say about wholeness? So when you have wholeness, you're free from your limiting beliefs. And that shows up in 2 remarkable ways. On the one hand, you feel a remarkable sense of inner peace, but at the same time, you also experience tremendous energy, tremendous vitality to pursue a cause, to achieve a mission, to achieve a goal. And that is priceless to leaders. Now, another way of talking about presence is to describe what it's not. So I found it helpful to contrast it with charisma. Now, many authors will talk about charisma and presence in a different way. They'll see presence as a subset of charisma. I'm not going to argue with that. Again, I'm going to say that's not how I see it. I see charisma as a bundle, as a mixture of outer charm and outer power and persuasiveness. I define presence as an inner psychospiritual state with an outer reflection. Well, what I'm describing here as charisma, or at least charisma without presence, is an outer image, an outer presentation, but lacking that deeper, durable core. That's how I'm contrasting it. See, the person who is relying on their acting skills, the specialness that people project onto them, constant acclaim and constant success, when they don't feel that right down to their core, they are constantly exposed to the risk of failing, being exposed as a bit of a fraud. The person with presence, because they don't have this great self-esteem issue, they are much more resilient when things go wrong. They have a much more solid core. They don't have this leaky self-esteem. So that's how you can see the difference. Personal power is your ability to control your reactions to outer events, to take responsibility for it and to control it, including the behavior of other people. This, in fact, means taking power over your mind, taking power over your thoughts, your feelings, as well as your behavior. That is personal power. It's not power over others, it's power over your mind. So the person with personal power will never accept, will never say, "You made me angry." You won't hear them say that. Why is it possible to say that you can always take command over outer events? Because outer events, particularly physical events, have no fixed or permanent or universal meaning. The meaning you experience comes from how you see them. You give them a meaning, and that meaning will flow from how you see yourself, your self-image, and how you see the world. Now, I realize I'm talking abstractly, so let me give you an example, and this is a European example, because I'm going to talk about football. I mean, round balls, no padding, no helmets, and rugby-shaped balls. So, I am a fan of a team called Chelsea. They are currently the English champions, and they're doing extremely badly right now. But I love them. So I want you to imagine, you all know football, soccer, right? You can at least picture it, even if you're not a fan. Okay, imagine a game between Chelsea and Barcelona. Barcelona are the best side in Spain. Okay, and it's 0-0, no score. And it's now the last minute of the game. And one of the Chelsea players scores a spectacular goal, really difficult. Okay? What do you imagine the Chelsea fans are doing now? Just call it out. Cheering. Like that. Yep. Imagine they're feeling. Pardon? Excited. Yeah? Happy. Ecstatic. Okay, the Barcelona fans, what are they doing? Sorry? What faces? You paint your faces? What, when goals are scored against you? No? In Europe, we feel sad, okay? And we don't paint our faces. We haven't got time for that. Now, here's the interesting thing. Both sets of fans have seen precisely the same event. They've seen a man in a pair of shorts kick a round thing between two white sticks into a net. And yet one set sees the event this way, and the other one sees the event this way. Odd, isn't it? Because if those words are negative, I'm not good enough, I'm no one, I'm useless, I'm unlovable, I'm going to be rejected, those then determine your experience, through which they see the experience. But can you see that the experience itself was neutral? You give meaning to your experiences through the filters that you create in your minds. Well, in my experience, if other people sense that you do have this command over yourself, you could call this self-discipline if you like. There are 9 statements you recall for each of the statements. So here's what you're going to do. If your answers to where you've got a black circle, then give yourself a tick in the little square box on the right-hand side. If your answer corresponds to a white blank circle, don't give yourself a tick. For example, the first statement, my feelings and reactions depend on how others behave towards me. Now, if you've scored that strongly disagree, circle 1, or disagree, circle 2, give yourself a tick in the little box on the far right-hand side. So can you quickly score yourselves on those statements and then add up the number of ticks on the right, please?